Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop. I've got all these parts cleaned up pretty good. I've also been going through, and if you can see, as I've been tearing this apart, I've been showing you that Snapper paints these things when they're assembled. So you're going to have a lot of spots on your machine that's going to be rusty where it never got painted. I've been going through and wire brushing all the rust off. Then I'm going to mask this and just paint the areas that weren't painted previously. That way, if the paint that I have doesn't match exactly, you're never going to see it anyway. I did want to show you the outfit I use for painting this. Don't you just love pause? And I don't edit. This is my taper I use. I bought this at Menards. You can get 3-inch rolls of paper. You can get 6-inch and you can get 12-inch. Put a roll of tape on it. You put a roll of paper on it. And if you guys out there have ever painted a car, you've used one of these, only it's on a stand, and they come with 24-inch wide paper. These things are so cool. You just pull it out as long as you want it, rip it off, and the tape is already applied to the paper for you, and you just stick it on whatever it is you want to paint, and it masks off the rest of it. I can't remember how much I paid for that. I've had it for years. There's nothing on it that's ever going to wear out. It's made by 3M, and I got this from Menards, I bet 20 years ago, and they still sell them today. I've got all this stuff cleaned up pretty good. I got a parts washer, so to speak. I went down to Tractor Supply and I picked up a upright one or a bigger one, and it was like $99.99, and I got it home and I got looking at it and I said, man, that thing is really cheap. And it had the identical pump in it that burned up in my little one that I bet I haven't used 10 times. So we went pumpless. My tank is a 5-gallon drain pan for changing your oil. I dumped the stuff in there. I use paint thinner. I got a brush out of the parts washer. Used to have a hose hooked right on it. It pumps the fluid through the brush, which was kind of nice. When I get done cleaning it, I let this set for a day or two. Then I take the plug off the end and I pour it in a bucket. And once you let it set long enough, most of the heavy stuff is in the bottom of the pan, and you can wipe it out and throw it away. And your paint thinner doesn't get as dirty. Now, I got this from, where else? Home Depot. And I got this cover from Home Depot. The part I like about this cover the best, it was $7. And if you look down at the bottom, this bad boy is made in the USA. Bucket probably wasn't, but the cover is. Now, when I pour my paint thinner in here, once you snap this cover on, and I'll tell you, I had to use a rubber mallet to get it to snap down all the way. There's a rubber seal up in here, a big O-ring, and it doesn't leak. To get this cover off, I don't think you're ever going to unsnap this. The nice part about it is the inside unscrews, and you can lift it right off. And it also has a rubber seal. And the part you snap on is just this ring that snaps on the bucket. So when I want to wash something, I can just unscrew this, pour it in my little drain pan, clean my parts, and pour it back in a bucket. That way, none of it evaporates. So I got these cleaned up. I've started wire brushing these things and cleaning them up. I don't know if I've said that yet or not, but anyway. All the parts that weren't painted from assembly, I've been cleaning with just a cheap little wire brush from Menards, Home Depot, they all sell them. And I use a little right-angled air die grinder. It does a really nice job. Here's another piece. Takes all that rust right off and shines it up. Awesome job. The interior parts in this, really nice shape. The pin bearings in the chain case is a little slop. I don't know if that's typical for a pin bearing or not, but I'll probably replace them. They're really cheap. The ball bearings in the chain case, nothing wrong with them. The bull gear and pinion gears, if you're looking at yours and you want to know what they should look like in good shape, you can see the flats on the top of these teeth. That is what it should look like if you have a good gear. And the same with the pinion gears inside. They should have a nice flat on them. They should not be worn to a sharp edge. So that assembly I'm not even going to take apart. I've got it all cleaned up and I don't see a thing wrong with it. So I'm not going to pull them bolts out because they do tell you do not reuse those bolts. When you buy new ones, they have some Loctite on the thread. And when you screw it in, the friction from assembling it softens the Loctite up and then it locks the bolts in after you torque them. Don't quote me on this, but I'm thinking it's 25 to 28 foot-pounds of torque. I'd have to look it up. It's in one of my other videos somewhere. So that assembly I'm just going to leave together. In the past I have taken some apart and I've reused the bolts, but I put my own Loctite on them and then torqued them in. The chains seem to be not bad. They have a little slop in them. I always capture them between something, a couple small pieces of wood. I use a couple pieces of flat stock, and you want to try to slop them back and forth. They should not have much play in them. If you try to do it without capturing it, they're just going to bend and it's going to be kind of hard to check. That's how I check them. I've had a lot of comments and questions about these wheel flanges. The big one and the small one for the 2 axles. I've had a guy get a hold of me just the other day and he said the bolt hole in my wheel flanges and or axle is elongated or egg-shaped and it's allowing my wheel to slop back and forth on the axle. He wanted to know if he could re-drill them. I would say yes and no. The small axle, you can re-drill this out a little bigger. I wouldn't go crazy and go too big with it. The large axle or the short one, if you look really close on the inside, they have a plug welded in there or machined in. I don't know how they put it in there. But that keeps the lubricant in the differential from running out the end of this tube. Now, if you look close enough at the inside of here, you're going to notice that the edge of that hole is right up against that wall. So if you drill this out too big, the same hole, you're going to disturb that plug and it may start leaking fluid out. So on this end, I would say put it on and drill a new hole 90 degrees from the old one. Don't try to enlarge the one that's there. Now, if you don't have a fixture for center drilling these, I would assemble it, maybe put the old bolt in so you can get it started without it moving, and drill the hole. And you can match drill them at that point, and it doesn't matter if you're on center or not. You just won't be able to turn this and put it on 90 degrees, or I should say 180 degrees, from the way you drilled it, because it's probably not going to match up. But after you get through the wheel flange and the first part of the axle, you can take the old bolt out and finish drilling your hole. Just make sure you don't hit that plug that's inside this axle tube. That's kind of about it for this. Just wanted to explain some of the things I was doing to it. I've got to take the other fender off yet, and I'm sure that's going to look just like this fender did, no paint on it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that bushing on the left-hand fender. It has an awful lot of wear on it. Let me pull the fender off and I'll show you. Now, taking this fender off, these top two bolts has a clamp on it that holds the wires running from the battery box back to the engine. That would be the starter wires. Yeah, that one's pretty bad. That's the other bracket that holds the mower deck. And this bracket's painted right to it. I can't break it off. Maybe I'll just leave it on there. But there again, more rust. More rust on the inside. But I wanted to show you this bushing for the long axle, and you can see that it's got a lot of wear sticking out. Let me grab a scale here and I can measure the nylon insert is actually sticking up above the wear surface for the thrust washers, and that is sticking up a 32nd of an inch higher than this surface is. So I'm not sure if I want to press that out and stick it in the lathe and machine that flat again and just add a couple more nylon spacers, or if I want to just replace that assembly. To replace that whole assembly is about 45, 50 bucks. They're expensive. I know I want to replace the lip seal that's pressed into the bushing. Some of the newer machines, that's how they come. You'll have a lip seal pressed into this side, and then you have the dust cap that goes on the other side with the lip seal inserted into that. Now, my father-in-law's machine that we worked on here, His has a dust cap and lip seals that go on both sides. It was before they did the lip seal right in the bushing. I would rather have his and have this entire bushing actually support the axle, because the more surface you have, the better off you are. Where this one, to machine that lip seal down into that bushing, you lost about 1/4 of an inch of your bushing that supports your axle. So that's where we are at this point. I'm going to the main case, let me move you over here, as you can see, is pretty much stripped down. There's not a whole lot left on it. The bushings for my yoke are in excellent shape. I don't even know if I'm going to pull the yoke out. I might just leave it in there. The shift handle that's on here, there's nothing wrong with that. The thrust washer that's underneath the actual shift handle out here on the outside of the plate looks like it's in pretty good shape. I may pull the handle off just to make sure that that thrust washer is not worn through, because if it is, then the edges of the shift handle starts digging in and gouging your detent plate, they call that. I just call it a shift plate. So I'm not really sure how much more I want to strip off here, because the more I take off, the more the factory paint I disturb, and it's in really excellent shape as far as the paint job on it. So I think I'm about done with that. I am going to sand down or wire brush down the sides where the fenders were and get some paint on them. When I start painting this stuff, I'll be using my paint booth, and I'll show you what that's like. It's quite unique. I build it myself. I use it for all my puzzles I build that I send to these stores that sell them for me. I do a lot of puzzle work on my scroll saw, and I use that paint booth for spraying the lacquer on them. And it just all goes outside and I don't have to smell it. And when I get to painting these, I'll show you what the paint booth looks like and how it works, and it's quite unique. You're going to want to see it because it actually takes up no room in the shop. But when I use it, it's, I think, 3 feet wide. It sticks out from the wall 2 foot, I think, and it's about 24 inches tall. But when I'm not using it, it all but disappears. So you might want to watch that one. But that's about it on here. I did want to answer the gentleman's question about re-drilling his axle. You want to be careful with that, but it can be done. And I guess that's it. Don't forget to subscribe. It really does help me, and it really helps other guys that are looking for these videos. Give them a thumbs up. Share them if you want to, if you figure out how to do that. I just figured out how to do that myself. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and let's get these babies going for spring, because I don't know if spring's ever going to get up here in Michigan. We'll talk to you soon. So long.